What is up, everybody? It's Animac here for AnimeUproar, and today I will be explaining the true intentions and hidden motivations of each and every Titan shifter in the world of Attack on Titan, including Reiner, Bertolt, Annie, Eren's dad Grisha, the Beast Titan, and all the rest. I will focus on why these individuals have done all the things that they have done, including some unspeakably evil things that caused the deaths of many innocent people. But in the world of Attack on Titan, nothing is simple and pretty much no one is purely evil or purely good, so the true intentions and motivations of each Titan shifter are some of the most interesting aspects of the entire series. If you want to see more Attack on Titan content on this channel, you can leave a like to let me know. And if you're new to AnimeUproar, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Quick warning, this video will contain manga spoilers. Some of the characters that we will talk about have not yet been properly introduced in the anime, so I have no choice but to get into the manga material. If you don't care about spoilers, that's totally cool. Personally, I'm one of those people who doesn't actually mind spoilers, but if you don't like spoilers and you don't want to be spoiled, this is your warning. Major, colossal-sized spoilers ahead. Let's start things off with Eren. Eren is the main protagonist of Attack on Titan, and his entire childhood is shattered when his home district of Shiganshina was attacked by the Titans at the very beginning of the story. Eren sees his hometown destroyed, he sees thousands of innocent people killed, and he even sees his own mother being eaten by a Titan right in front of his eyes. This experience traumatizes the young Eren, and he develops an immense hatred for Titans. He swears to get revenge and kill all the Titans so that they can never hurt anyone else again. However, when he is on the verge of being killed by a Titan, Eren suddenly transforms into a Titan, and no one is more shocked about this stunning revelation than Eren himself. The boy who swore to do everything he can to fight and destroy all the Titans because of what they did to his loved ones and to his hometown is faced with a seemingly impossible predicament. For some reason, he himself has the ability to transform into a Titan, even though he has no idea why. This creates a powerful inner conflict within Eren, and it makes for some fascinating character development. Even though he begins as a pretty one-dimensional character, someone who was wronged by the Titans and now he wants revenge, circumstances force Eren to realize that the world is never as black and white as we'd like to think. Now, I've heard many people criticizing Eren as a protagonist because he is so one-dimensional at first, and because he is driven by a single, all-encompassing obsession for revenge. But as someone who lived through the civil war in the former Yugoslavia as a child, and as someone who was a refugee and had to flee my hometown never to return, I can definitely relate to Eren. At certain points in my life, I also felt like the world was black and white. I felt I was wronged, my childhood was stolen from me, and I wanted revenge. But as I got older, I realized that war is never simple. There are always multiple sides to the story, and there are always good people and bad people on both sides of every conflict. It's never a case of my side being completely innocent and pure, and the enemy being utterly sinful and evil. That's just not how life works. As the story goes on, Eren continues to learn this lesson over and over again, especially as he learns more about the world beyond the walls. And again, there will be major spoilers ahead, I'm just warning you yet again so that no one can say that I didn't. When Eren realizes that the people he thought were his friends and comrades, including Reiner, Bertolt, and Annie, were the ones behind all his suffering, he finds it incomprehensible. But when he learns about the outside world and where Reiner, Bertolt, and Annie grew up, when he learns that they were raised in Marley, where they were indoctrinated every single day to believe that their own people, the Eldians, were children of the devil and were utterly and completely evil, Eren begins to see the other side of the story. To say that the Eldians in Marley are treated as second-class citizens would be an understatement. They are held in what is akin to concentration camps, and they are abused and mistreated every single day of their lives. The Eldians are taught that they are inherently evil, and the only way to atone for the sins of their ancestors is to join the Marley warrior program and to help exterminate other Eldians on the island of Paradise. Only by doing this can the Eldians of Marley hope to become honorary Marleyan citizens and make life more bearable for themselves and their families. As the story progresses, Eren sees that for the Eldians of Marley, who were brainwashed and indoctrinated for their entire lives, the Eldians on the island are the true evildoers, just as the Titans and the Titan shifters from Marley are the clear villains for all the Eldians on the island. And this is the reality that Eren ultimately has to accept. There are multiple sides to this unfortunate conflict, and each side believes that they are the good guys and that they are fighting for justice. They believe that they are only doing what they have to do in order to survive. Faced with this reality, Eren has to forget his black and white view of the world, and he has to decide what to do next. Should he attack Marley even though this will hurt thousands of innocent victims? Victims who will suffer just like he and his friends suffered. Or should he just sit back and let Marley continue to mercilessly abuse and slaughter Eldians until they are all dead? Or should he try to work out some sort of compromise, knowing full well that this compromise may be impossible in the long run? These are the questions that Eren has been struggling with in the latest arcs of the manga, and at this point we're not exactly sure what his ultimate decision will be. However, it is clear that Eren has vastly progressed and grown as a character, and that he is in no way a one-dimensional protagonist. Not anymore. Next up is Grisha Jaeger. The father of Eren, Grisha grew up as an Eldian inside the Liberio internment camp in Marley. He faced repression and abuse from the Marleyan majority throughout his entire life, and his own little sister was brutally murdered by the Marleyans. Grisha could not accept such cruelty and brutality, and he decided to join the Eldian Restorationist movement. This movement fought to liberate the Eldians on Marley from Marleyan oppression, and just as the Marleyans taught that all Eldians were children of the devil and that in their past they brutally abused other nations, the Restorationists thought that the Eldian Empire of the past was benevolent and that it must be restored. Basically, both sides, the Marleyan government and the Eldian Restorationists, believed in a very simplistic view of the world. We are the good guys, they are the bad guys. In order for our guys to survive, we must destroy the other guys. Grisha was so committed to the Eldian Restorationists that he tried to use his own son to infiltrate the Marleyan military in order to benefit the Restorationist cause. Despite the fact that his son Zeke was only a small child, Grisha put immense amount of pressure on him, asking him to play a double agent and to work for the Restorationists from within the Marleyan system. Grisha was willing to sacrifice his own son for his beliefs, and after the Restorationists were betrayed by Zeke and their movement failed, Grisha managed to escape to the island of Paradise with the help of another Eldian Restorationist, Eren Kruger, also known as the Owl. Grisha gained the power of the Attack Titan from the Owl, and when he started a new life in Shiganshina, he named his second son Eren in honor of the Owl. What's more, he attacked the royal Fritz family, gained possession of the founding Titan, and then he passed on those powers to his new son Eren without Eren's consent. Even though giving Eren these Titan powers meant significantly shortening his son's life and putting him in grave danger, Grisha did not care because he was willing to do anything in order to achieve his dream of restoring the Eldian Empire to greatness. He proved time and time again that he was willing to be a terrible father, that he was willing to sacrifice his sons and himself, and that he was even willing to kill innocent people like the children of the Fritz family, all in the name of achieving his goal, to overthrow the Marleyan regime and to restore Eldia to her former glory. Then we have the Owl, Eren Kruger. Eren Kruger was a prominent leader of the Eldian Restorationists in Marley. When he was young, Kruger's father joined an insurgent force that was created by members of the royal Fritz family who stayed on the continent. Their plans were discovered by Marleyan public security authorities, and they were all burned alive with their families. As a child, Kruger saw his family being burned alive through a crack in a closet. That is the day he swore to get revenge on Marley and restore Eldia. He was able to get an Eldian doctor to fake his blood test, convincing the authorities that he wasn't Eldian. Because of this, Kruger was able to join the Marleyan public security authorities and work as a spy for the Eldian Restorationists under the name The Owl. In his role as a Marleyan officer, he witnessed and even actively participated in the abuse, torture, and outright murder of countless of his own fellow Eldians. He went along with all of it without ever blowing his cover until the time finally came for him to turn on the Marleyans and pass the Attack Titan power on to Grisha. The Owl, Eren Kruger, is the earliest possessor of the Attack Titan power that we have been introduced to in the series. And one can only imagine how anyone could do the things he had done in the name of the Eldian Restorationist movement. I mean, for so many years, he oversaw the slaughter of his own people, but he did it all in the name of one day destroying Marley and restoring the greatness of the Eldian Empire. Like Grisha, Eren Kruger was willing to do terrible things to achieve his ultimate goal. He believed that the ends justified the means, and he was content with playing the long game and doing whatever it took for his cause to gain an advantage in the end. Now let's talk about Reiner, Bertolt, and Annie. The three members of the 104th Training Corps who turned out to be Titan shifters and vicious traitors were all Eldians born in Marley. They spent their childhood being indoctrinated by Marley propaganda, which tried to convince them that all Eldians are inherently evil and that the only way for them to atone for the sins of their forefathers was to help Marley destroy the Eldians on the island. They entered the Marleyan warrior program, which was designed in order to recruit Eldians who would be willing to fight for Marley as Titan shifters. Because only Eldians can become Titans, Marley had to compel Eldians to compete with each other in order to determine who should inherit one of the Titan powers. The reward for Eldians who passed the warrior program and succeeded in inheriting one of the Titan shifter powers was honorary Marleyan citizenship for themselves and their families. Reiner's mother was Eldian, but his father was Marleyan, and Reiner worked hard in the Marleyan warrior program, hoping that he could inherit one of the Titan powers. And he wanted to do this so that he and his mom could become honorary Marleyans and be reunited with his Marleyan father. At first, Reiner was convinced by the Marleyan propaganda, and he truly believed that if he did everything the Marleyans said, he could one day earn a better life for himself and his family. Reiner believed that their mission was just, and that the Eldians on the island truly were devils who deserved to die. But as he infiltrated the island and began interacting with the people there, including Eren, Armin, Marco, Historia, and everyone else, Reiner was forced to realize that the people on the island were normal people just like everyone else. The brutal nature of his mission and his genuine friendship with some of his comrades on the island created such a conflict within Reiner that he developed a form of split personality and he became mentally unstable. The truth is that all of his sacrifice for Marley and his ability to attain honorary Marleyan status meant nothing to his Marleyan father. His father still wanted nothing to do with him just because he was part Eldian. After returning from Paradise, Reiner went through a period of utter despair and depression, unable to cope with all of the terrible things that he had done on the island. However, once Eren and the Eldians attacked Liberio and thousands of innocent people died in the process, Reiner regained his sense of purpose as he came to believe that Eren and Zeke had to be stopped. Like Reiner, Bertolt became a Titan shifter through the Marleyan warrior program. He traveled to Paradise with the rest of the Marleyan team and used the Colossal Titan power to break through the Shiganshina district's gate. Bertolt was a quiet boy with low self-esteem, and for the majority of the story he relied on the guidance of his comrade Reiner. Bertolt also appeared to develop romantic feelings for his other infiltrator comrade, Annie Leonhardt, and he expressed great concern about Annie's well-being after she was captured by the Eldians on the island. Bertolt felt great remorse and guilt over what he and the other warriors had to do, and like Reiner, he also came to see his fellow soldiers in the 104th Training Corps as close friends. This means that he also realized that Marley's propaganda about all Eldians being children of the devil was false, and that the Eldians on the island were just normal people, some good, some bad, and others somewhere in between. Eventually, Bertolt came to the conclusion that no one was to blame for the terrible situation that they were in. The world was simply cruel, and they all had to do what they had to do. Everyone had to die because the world was cruel, and death was inevitable. Annie Leonhardt is another Eldian who grew up in Marley, and Annie gained the power of the female Titan through the Marleyan warrior program. She went on the mission to retrieve the founding Titan from Paradise along with Reiner, Bertolt, and Marcel Galliard. She used the female Titan's power to attract pure Titans to her Titan form, so that these Titans would flood into the Shiganshina district after Bertolt destroyed the gate during the initial Marleyan attack. But unlike Reiner and Bertolt, who seemed to believe Marleyan propaganda at first until traumatic experiences finally opened their eyes, Annie never seemed to actually buy into the Marleyan propaganda, and she also quickly saw that there were some good people and bad people on the island. Annie saw that, just like in the outside world, the world on the island had both kindness and corruption, both darkness and light, and she never expressed any vigorous enthusiasm for killing in the name of Marley. Despite the fact that she often acts cold and disinterested, Annie grew attached to her comrades in the 104th Training Corps, and she was deeply affected when Reiner decided that they had to kill Marco. She was also clearly hurt when she realized that Eren, Armin, and Mikasa had figured out that she was the female Titan and had turned on her. Annie was never driven by propaganda or any type of ideological motivation. She just wanted to provide a better life for herself and her father back in Marley. And after arriving on the island of Paradise, she tried to abort the mission and simply returned to Marley multiple times, but the zealous Reiner stopped this from happening. Now let's talk about Marcel Galliard. Marcel was the 4th warrior who was sent on the mission to retrieve the founding Titan from Paradise Island. An Eldian born in Marley, Marcel's parents entered him and his brother Porco into the warrior program. Marcel was strong, reliable, and quick-witted. He excelled in the program and earned the honor of inheriting the Jaw Titan power. Marcel seems to understand that the warrior program is not all that it's cracked up to be, and he is skeptical of Marleyan propaganda. For example, Marcel did not want his younger brother Porco to become a Titan shifter, even though it's supposed to be an honor for warriors. And so in order to stop Porco from having to accept this burden, Marcel recommended Reiner to become the next Armored Titan instead of Porco, even though Porco showed himself to be more fit for the role than Reiner. Thus, Porco stayed behind as Marcel went with Reiner, Annie, and Bertolt to Paradise Island on the mission to bring back the founding Titan. However, on their way to the walls, a mindless Titan takes the group by surprise and is about to eat Reiner. But Marcel pushes him out of the way and sacrifices his own life to save Reiner's. Even though Marcel doesn't really buy into Marleyan propaganda and he sees the dark side of what Marley is doing, he still shows himself to be a man of honor. He was committed to protecting his brother from the burden of becoming a Titan shifter, but despite the fact that Reiner wanted to assume the role of the Armored Titan, Marcel feels guilty about placing that burden upon him, and he ultimately sacrifices his own life to protect Reiner. Now let's talk about Ymir of the 104th Training Corps. The mindless Titan who ate Marcel and nearly derailed the entire warrior mission turns out to be Ymir, the future member of the 104th Training Corps. Ymir was also born as an Eldian in Marley, and she was a nameless orphan who was forced to desperately beg for food in the streets. An Eldian man eventually took her in and named her Ymir, after the legendary Ymir Fritz, the first ruler of the Eldian Empire. Eventually a cult formed around Ymir and she was worshipped as the reincarnation of the original Ymir. Because she saw how happy this made the cult members, Ymir played along. However, when the Marleyan authorities cracked down on the cult, the man who took Ymir in claimed that she had manipulated him, and she was arrested, tortured, stoned in the streets, and eventually turned into a mindless Titan and dumped on Paradise Island. She roamed the island as a mindless Titan for 6 decades before she eventually ate Marcel, which turned her back into a human with the ability to shift into the Jaw Titan. Since she clearly doesn't look older than 60, it seems that humans don't actually age while in mindless Titan form. Inside the walls, Ymir lived as a thief, but at one point she overheard a conversation about Crystal Lens, aka Historia, and this led her to join the military. Even though she maintains an air of selfishness and coldness outwardly, Ymir develops a strong attachment to her comrades in the 104th Training Corps and especially to Historia. On the surface, Ymir seems to be motivated by just trying to live her life as freely and comfortably as possible, which makes sense after everything she had to go through in Marley. But eventually her actions end up being driven by her desire to help and protect the people that she cares about. She risks her life by using the Jaw Titan power to save Historia and the other recruits from a huge group of pure Titans at Utgard Castle. Later, after Eren makes contact with the Smiling Titan and uses the Founding Titan power to make the surrounding pure Titans attack Reiner and Bertolt, Ymir decides to use the Jaw Titan power to help save the 2 Marleyan warriors. Although Reiner gives her a chance to escape after they evaded the pure Titans, Ymir declines. She says she is tired and she wants to repay her debt because their arrival to Paradise freed her from her endless nightmare, referring to the time she spent as a mindless Titan. She knows that the 2 of them, Bertolt and Reiner, cannot go back empty-handed, so she decides to play the goddess, as she says, and act selflessly so that they may be spared. They bring her back to Marley, where Porco Galliard eats her and inherits the Jaw Titan power. And so the outwardly self-centered Ymir turns out to be driven by selflessness and a desire to help others. Although I personally don't understand her decision to help Reiner and Bertolt when she knows that the Jaw Titan power will be used to attack the island, which will place Historia and her other friends in direct danger. But that aside, let's talk about the Fritz royal family. All of the 9 Titan powers were originally possessed by Ymir Fritz. The Marley version of history argues that Ymir made a deal with the Earth Devil over 1800 years ago, and that this is why the Eldians, or subjects of Ymir, are also referred to as the children of the devil. On the other hand, Eren Kruger believes that Ymir came into contact with the source of all living matter, and in this way she obtained her power. With the powers that she obtained, she managed to create a vast Eldian empire. The Marleyans believed that this empire was an evil force that abused its enemies. But the Eldian restorationists believed that the Eldian Empire was a progressive force for good. Ymir paid a high price for attaining her incredible power. She could only live for another 13 years before she died, and this led to the curse of Ymir. Since no other Titan shifter could be more powerful than Ymir, a shifter must die within 13 years of getting the power. However, we have never actually seen a shifter die from Ymir's curse yet. They always pass the power on to someone else beforehand, so we aren't 100% sure what would happen if they did die. Although Eren Kruger believes that in that case the power would pass on to a random newborn Eldian. After Ymir Fritz died, the power of the founding Titan was kept in the royal Fritz family, later renamed the Reese family within the walls on the island of Paradise. King Karl Fritz is also referred to as the first king behind the walls because he was the one who relocated a portion of the Eldians to Paradise Island and created the 3 walls using tens of millions of colossal titans. He is also the one who used the power of the founding Titan to erase the memories of those same Eldians, so that they came to believe that they were the last remnants of humanity and that there was nothing beyond the walls except for titans. In order to protect the true royal family, he renamed them from Fritz to Reese, so that they could avoid all public attention while another bloodline played the role of the royal family within the walls. According to Willy Tybur, 100 years ago the Eldian Empire was using the power of the Titans to rule the world. While the royal Fritz family held the founding Titan, the other 8 Titans were held by other families, who continuously fought each other over the remaining Titan powers. Willy Tybur claims, although it is important to know that this may just be propaganda and not actually true, that Karl Fritz, even before he inherited the founding Titan power, felt guilty about the Eldian Empire's brutal history, including the deadly wars and oppressive rule that kept Eldia as the most powerful empire in the world. When he inherited the Titan power, Karl Fritz conspired with one of the Titan families, the Tybur family who possessed the Warhammer Titan, in order to put an end to the Eldian Empire. Karl Fritz created the walls with the help of tens of millions of colossal titans and claimed that he would unleash the titans inside to flatten the earth if anyone interfered in the affairs of the island. However, according to Willy Tybur, Karl Fritz didn't actually mean this. In reality, he renounced war and made sure that his pacifist philosophy would be passed down to every royal-blooded inheritor of the founding Titan. Since only those of royal blood can unlock the full potential of the founding Titan, Karl thought that this would ensure that the founding Titan is never used against other nations again. His ultimate goal was peace, but Karl Fritz had also accepted the fact that Marley might grow as a nation and eventually exterminate all Eldians, including the royal family. But he believed that the crimes that the Eldians committed in the past were so grave that they should never have existed in the first place and could never atone for their actions, so their extermination was justified. But until the day of extermination came, he wanted to enjoy a peaceful paradise inside the walls with his people for as long as he could. However, we have to remember that this is the story that Willy Tybur tells everyone in Marley about Karl Fritz's true motivations. It may not be true. It could be just a lie designed to benefit the Tybur family and portray them as heroes. We don't know who the other inheritors of the founding Titan were until Mr. Reese, who was the father of Yuri Reese and Rod Reese. And of course we know that Rod Reese is Historia's father. Mr. Reese inherited the first king's ideology and he refused to put a stop to the Titan threat, despite the pleas of Yuri and Rod to defeat the Titans so that humanity could safely venture outside the walls. He even appeared to have imprisoned his son Rod because of his constant attempts to convince his father to destroy the Titans. Eventually Yuri Reese, Rod's younger brother, inherited the power of the founding Titan. Yuri was always determined to save humanity from the Titans before he inherited the power. However, once he ate his father and inherited the power, he also inherited Karl Fritz's ideology, and as a result, he refused to save humanity from the Titans or to tell anyone about their lost memories. Yuri eventually passed down his power to his niece, Frida Reese. Frida Reese was the daughter of Rod Reese, and she was also Historia's older half-sister. At the age of 15, she injected herself with the Titan serum and, as a mindless Titan, ate her uncle, inheriting the founding Titan. Like Yuri, she believed that she could fight the ideology of the first king, Karl Fritz. She told Rod, and I quote, "Leave it to me, father. I won't let the ghosts of our ancestors get the better of me." But she also immediately changed her tune after inheriting the founding Titan power, and she also adopted Karl Fritz's ideology. But despite inheriting the memories of the founding Titan, Frida did not become completely cold or emotionless. She would secretly visit her younger half-sister Historia back when she lived a lonely existence on a farm, and Frida would read to her and tell her about their ancestor Ymir Fritz. It was clear that Frida cared deeply for Historia. However, Frida would erase Historia's memories after every encounter so that she wouldn't know anything about the outside world, just like the rest of humanity behind the walls. Frida was ultimately killed by Grisha, who took the founding Titan power and eventually passed it on to Eren. Because Grisha and Eren don't have royal blood, they were not affected by the first king's ideology after gaining the founding Titan power. Next up, let's talk about Porco Galliard. The younger brother of the former Jaw Titan holder Marcel, Porco Galliard is the current possessor of the Jaw Titan power. Porco has been a loyal soldier for the Marleyan army, and we have seen him use his Jaw Titan power to great effect in battle between Marley and its enemies. As another Eldian who was born in Marley and went through the warrior program, Porco is primarily driven by his loyalty to his fellow warriors, and he shows great emotional attachment to them and a strong desire to protect them. Because of this, Porco is especially shocked at Zeke's betrayal, and Porco desperately wants revenge for what Zeke and Eren did in Liberio. Porco is prone to emotional outbursts that can get the better of him, and this has been exploited by the Survey Corps in the past. Then we have Peak. Peak is the only known holder of the card Titan power, as we still don't know anything about any of the past possessors. Peak also inherited her Titan power from the Marleyan warrior program. She has demonstrated exceptional intelligence, and she was given the card Titan power specifically because she showed strong judgment. Peak has shown incredible skills in battle despite the fact that her Titan doesn't have strong offensive capabilities, and she has also shown an immense amount of dedication to her comrades in the warrior program. Peak in her card Titan form was the one who managed to save and retrieve Zeke and Reiner during the Battle of Shiganshina. Peak's intelligence allows her to see through Marley's propaganda, and in the past she has voiced veiled criticism of Marley's policies towards the Eldians and to their questionable battle strategies. Peak recognizes that once modern weapons render Titan powers irrelevant, Marley and the other nations of the world will probably try to eradicate all Eldians. As such, Peak's motivation is to find a way to save the Eldian people and end their repression, but she is conflicted as to how to pursue those ends. She disagrees with Marley's brutal treatment of Eldians, but she also can't support what Eren and Zeke did to Liberio and how they were willing to sacrifice innocent civilians in order to achieve their goals. As of the making of this video, Peak's loyalties lie with her fellow Eldian warriors like Reiner, Porco, Gabi, and Falco, but we are not sure whose side Peak will end up on at the end, or whether she will use her vast intelligence to come up with a completely different solution that defies the wishes of both Marley and the Jaegerists. Then we have the younger sister of Willy Tybur, who was the shifter who possessed the power of the Warhammer Titan, the Titan that was passed on within the Tybur family for generations. She secretly possessed the Warhammer Titan power, while publicly the Tybur family claimed that Willy was the Warhammer Titan. We don't know much about what her motivations were, other than the fact that she was loyal to her family and that she wanted to defeat Eren. She may really be loyal to Marley, or she may have been merely protecting the interests of the Tybur family itself, which is an Eldian royal family that receives special treatment in Marley because of the role they played in bringing down the Eldian Empire. She was defeated and eaten by Eren before we even learned her first name. Then we have Zeke Jaeger and his other quote-unquote father, Tom Xaver. Zeke Jaeger is the son of Grisha Jaeger and Dina Fritz, and Eren Jaeger's older half-brother. He was entered into the Marleyan warrior program by Grisha, who as we know was an Eldian restorationist and wanted to plant his son as an Eldian spy within the Marleyan military. But one day Zeke appeared to betray his parents and rat them out, along with other Eldian restorationists. Later in the manga we learned that Zeke had realized that the Marleyan military was just about to take down the Eldian restorationists, and Zeke decided to betray his parents on the advice of his mentor in the warrior program, Tom Xaver. If he did nothing and the Marleyan army inevitably found out the truth on their own, they would have killed all the restorationists along with their families, including Zeke and his grandparents. The former Beast Titan Tom Xaver told Zeke that his parents were cruel to him for putting him through everything they had put him through, and he specifically told him to save himself and his grandparents by betraying Grisha and Dina. By betraying his parents, Zeke was able to save himself and his grandparents, and he was also able to keep the fact that he had royal blood hidden from the Marleyan military. Zeke has the least amount of time left to live out of the current Titan shifters, and for a time we were led to believe that Zeke secretly wanted to save the Eldians and that he and Eren were plotting to defeat Marley in order to end the repression of the Eldian population. However, in recent chapters we learned that Zeke apparently wants to euthanize the entire Eldian race, his own race. As it appears right now, Zeke has a nihilistic philosophy which holds that all Eldians, by virtue of being able to transform into Titans, are cursed, and they will always be attacked and seen as evil because of this ability. For that reason, Zeke has come to believe that it would be better for Eldians if they never even existed, and he wants to ensure that this generation of Eldians will be the final generation. He hopes to use the Founding Titan's ability, currently possessed by his brother Eren, in order to make all Eldians alive today sterile, which would mean that they cannot produce any more offspring and the entire Eldian race would die off with this generation. This euthanasia plan was inspired by the former Beast Titan and Zeke's mentor Tom Xaver, who also came to believe that the life of an Eldian was nothing but suffering. Xaver was the one who told Zeke that the power of the Founding Titan allows the holder not only to manipulate the memories of all Eldians, but also their physical composition, meaning that the Founding Titan power could forcibly sterilize all Eldians. Xaver also told Zeke that in order to carry out this plan, he would need to work together with someone who holds the Founding Titan but doesn't possess royal blood, because that is the only way to stop the First King's ideology from taking over. Personally, I completely disagree with this plan, and I hope Zeke doesn't actually go through with it. And I certainly hope that Eren will not ultimately support Zeke in this. I understand that the other nations are afraid of Eldians because of their ability to turn into Titans, but the individual Eldians alive today are not responsible for the sins of their ancestors, and they are not at fault for the fact that they can turn into Titans. I just don't understand how anyone could possess the amount of self-hatred required to want to erase their own people from the world. And I am betting that if not Zeke, then at least Eren will come to his senses and stop this insane plan from coming to fruition. And finally, we also have Armin, who unwillingly became the next Colossal Titan after he ate Bertolt. From what I've seen so far, Armin's personality doesn't appear to have changed that much after becoming the Colossal Titan. Although he is definitely willing to kill a large number of Marleyan soldiers if that's what he has to do to survive, Armin ultimately wants peace and he doesn't trust people like Zeke. Armin's goal is to use his intelligence to come up with a compromise that will allow both Eldians and other nations of the world to coexist peacefully. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Who is your favorite Titan shifter, and which of their motivations can you relate to the most? Also, how do you think this whole thing will end? Is Zeke really going to go through with his plan? And is Eren really going to go along with it? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed the Attack on Titan content on this channel and you want to see more, leave a like to let me know. And if you're new to AnimeUproar, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. A huge thank you to all of our AnimeUproar patrons for supporting our work. I want to especially thank our Pro Hero tier patrons, the one and only Gilgamesh, Keelon, and Chubbs is the man. And another huge thank you to our The One tier patrons, the ones who stand above all other clans, including Ace, Maddie Mac, James, Alolan Adam, Ingrata, and Ahmad. And at the very pinnacle of interdimensional greatness, the tier reserved only for legends, a massive thank you to Baby Ray, the first ever disciple of Lord Twigo himself. If you guys feel that our content provides value for you and you want to support more, be sure to check out our Patreon link in the description. Even donating a single dollar will give you access to our AnimeUproar patron exclusive Discord, and your name will appear in our videos along with these amazing people. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, see ya, Space Cowboys.